So here we have our last page for the same 6 Wednesday. And these items are from Tanya McGuire. Have a piece of textured wallpaper. Kind of excited to use that. A time card. Her cute little zine, which is always amazing. We have her cute little letter on her painty papers. We have some echo dyed, rusty, grungy looking funness. Some feathers, which is kind of cool because I've never really worked with feathers before. We have these wonderfully gorgeous little flowers, metal flowers, and a Napa tag. I'll probably cover up the back, but I'm going to leave the Napa because my daddy worked for Napa. So I'm going to open our card and kind of just play around and think and think. This one was hard, but once it kicked in, it was like, okay. So I'm going to try using that as a texture plate. And I'm using a Distress crayon here. And I didn't really like it when I smeared it. Got me some water. Tried it again. Didn't really like it. So I think I'm going to try something else. So I come back with the jelly plate. I have a little bit of green and a little bit of turquoise. I was kind of trying to match that painty paper there. So I just spread it out. I really don't have enough paint on there, but it's okay. I'm texturing it with the wallpaper. Love the way it turned out. Gonna go over that and see because I've got other paper. I can cut another page if I need to. And I think I'm gonna keep it. I kind of like it. So now we're gonna put out some paint. And we kind of have a little bit of paint gunk in there. And then go with the green, and it is like on the verge of being no good. It's very, 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 very thick. So we're going to brayer that out and use our wallpaper again. As I'm using the wallpaper to get paint on it, I am trying really hard to cover all parts of the pages and all parts of the wallpaper because I really think it's gorgeous with the paint on it both ways. So I'm going to use the leftover paint from my brayer, and now I'm filling up the page of wallpaper with more textures, which in turn fills the sheet up. And now I'm finishing painting my paper. I'm going to use the leftover paint on the brayer and just set it aside. That'll give me some grungy goodness to pick up later. So now I'm sitting here trying to decide on exactly what I want to do on the pages. The feathers kind of go all over the place until I slightly figure it out. I wasn't wanting to leave them whole because I was afraid cutting them they would be all over the place, but honestly they really do cut pretty well. So you get to enjoy my thought process here of where I want them. And of course, you know, you can tell I'm doing a voiceover now and talking with my hands then. Haven't figured out how to do a video without talking. But that's okay. One of these days. So there I'm going through all the items again. And this was a pretty well, oh, I don't want to say well thought out, but a well thought of page. Because it took me a while to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. I know that I fell in love with that little leaf right there. So I had to make sure it was fairly visible. I'm trying to just experiment, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I cut it down, and I took a Sharpie to the blue tape, and I've decided to hinge it on that page. And I'm going to just give it a little tear when I have enough for a hinge, but don't want to waste all that paper. So glue it down real well. There I am forgetting how I wanted to put it on there. So now I got a little flip up spot. So I decided to get out the little stapler and utilize that a little bit. Help hold it all in. I intended to sew that on, but I kind of forgot. And I didn't feel like taking it to the sewing machine. So I get the stinky glue. And I glue it down. Reach over and grab a couple clamps and clamp it on so that it stays nice and secure where I want it to be. So now we're going back over to the other side. And I still have the wallpaper, and I remembered I was going to make a tab for that page. So I cut me a tab, and of course I can't cut straight. Put the little tab on there, and I'm going to grab the stapler again and put my tab on there. So I'm just kind of playing with the components and trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. Cut me a little piece of the wallpaper and trim it down to fit the tag. Trim it up, and now just let it set and dry. So finally, I'm getting to play with this page. I get out my decal ruler and tear so all the edges are a little bit, you know, rough and old looking. I'm talking about my favorite ruler. It's a decal ruler, it's an centering ruler, and I think it should have regular ruler marks on the back. Then it would be an all-in-one. So I play around trying to figure out exactly what everything's going to be, and it just kind of all clicks and falls into place. I'm going to stitch down the sides because there's not a ton of room left to be glued. Playing around where the flowers are going to go. Yep, it doesn't have a hole. I had to get out my jewelry pliers and poke a hole in there. So now I'm going to take a quick break and run over there to the sewing machine and sew that up. And I did, but then I came back, picked up another thing because my attention span is gone. So what I've decided to do for the little flip out is turn it into a book. And I use the kind of a lined stamp to just put some lines in there, and then I use stitched lines to do lines in the other part because I really like it. It didn't stamp even, but it's okay. It all flows into the same style. So now you've got nice little lines to write with if you want to. And we're going back over to this page. And I've stitched the edges, and I punched a hole, half a hole, just to make it easier to grab in and out. Again, I'm playing with my placements again. I had lots and lots of thoughts on this page, and I would have loved to share them, but the dogs were barking and the TV was on, so I wanted you guys to not have to hear that. So what I'm doing here is I've just got a pencil and I'm making some scribble marks. And believe it or not, when I do that, I tend to, at least in my mind, maybe not exactly in writing, I am writing all of my kids' names and my grandkids' names. I don't know that, anybody can ever tell that. And then I determined that it needs more scribbles that in places where, there wasn't any. But that's something I've done for a long time when I put scribbles on something. Or maybe it's just in my head and it's really not anything like their names, but I always think it is. It's kind of like I count things when I'm sorting. Whether or not I'm accurate is totally not an issue. So I'm going to grab a little bit of washi tape and add a little extra design elements on there just to make it pretty. Gonna add a little ink, still working in some of that blue-green color. Now I'm adding a little bit of the walnut stain ink because I just had to have everything matchy-matchy this time. So I'm just going to use the script stamp and the walnut ink and just add a little bit of script on that paper to kind of fill in some blank spaces. Had to dig out the tacky glue because I used the last of the glue stick. Now we're going to glue down our pocket. Oh, but I remember I need to poke a hole and put my brad and flower in that pocket. And sorry about being off screen there, but you do see it. You just don't see me fighting putting it in there and closing the flaps. Yep, had to get the tweezers. Fingers just didn't want to go down in that hole. So now we put the glue on it and glue it down. And now I have a pocket for that cute little zine. So I'm going to use my jewelry hole punch and pliers and poke a hole so that I can get it right where I want it. Using the little gold brads. Of course, this one's a lot easier to put it through because I'm not working in a pocket. So pretty much what we're down to now is just a little bit more embellishing and sewing in those pages. But I'm really liking this. I'm loving the color scheme. This whole series of the Same Sex Wednesday has been a big challenge for me. I'm using colors I don't normally use. I'm making a book in a style I've never made before. So it's really cool. And I'm trying to determine where I want to put the little Napa tag. The way the book's going to be put together could easily hang on the spine. And that's where I think I want to put it, but as I go on and try to decide, I end up talking myself out of it, and I make a pocket for it, which you will see in just a little bit. Of course, I got to do my outlines. Love my fine point fountain pen, but I tend to go too fast, and then it doesn't want to write, so I either slow down or I get another pen. Which I choose to get another pen. And this one is still being stubborn. It's also close to being dried out, but I have so many markers and so many pens. I'm trying to use them up before I open up a new one. So you use what's handy. So just doing my normal outline that I do on a lot of things, and trying to decide where the tag is going to go still. Did a little scribbling on the back. And now I'm just pretty sure I really like this, and I've decided to take my next step will be finding a spot for that. Again, I'm still indecisive. But I decide to tear me a piece of the wallpaper, which is very hard to tear, and make myself a little pocket. And I play with it in all kinds of different places. And I think that I'm going to put it right there. And I almost talk myself into it. Then I take the ring off. And I ink the edges with a Sharpie this time, because it was handy and the black ink pad wasn't. And I don't know if I intentionally put it in this spot or if it just is where I put it down and that's where it stays. Yep, I did. I intentionally put it there. Oh, it's crazy when you do a voiceover. Knowing what you did is difficult sometimes. So I'm going to get my long reach stapler and staple the pocket on just to add a few more staples. Another texture point, just like the other pages. So there we go. There's this last page.